This is the final week to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far, £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
We won 25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
Don't miss out as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co. Coming up tonight, there has been a horrific plane crash in Washington, D.C. President Trump just gave a very tough-talking press conference where he blames diversity and inclusion. We'll have the very latest on that. And our Home Secretary has announced today new counter-terrorism-style powers to help crack down on people smuggling gangs. You tell me then, will this finally be the answer or not? And figures out today show that shoplifting has cost retailers a massive £2 billion, and violence towards shop workers also increased by 50%. So we all know that this is getting worse and worse, but what is the solution to it? We're going to have all of that and lots more, but first of all, let's give you your 6 o'clock news headlines. Michelle, thank you very much. The top stories. US President Donald Trump has paid tribute to those who've lost their lives in the Washington, D.C. air collision. Authorities in Washington say they don't expect to find any survivors after a plane and a helicopter collided in mid-air over the Potomac River. These are the latest live shots from the US Capitol. More than 300 emergency responders are searching for survivors. 64 people, including crew, were on the American Airlines flight. 3 soldiers were on board the Black Hawk helicopter. At least 28 bodies have already been recovered. This was the plane coming into land at the Reagan-Washington National Airport seconds before the collision. The helicopter was on a training flight when the crash happened just before 9 p.m. local time. It's the first major US commercial air crash since 2009. President Trump says the tragedy has really shaken a lot of people, including those from other countries whose citizens were on board the plane.
Our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now. And in the days to come, we'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers.
In other news, 3 Israeli hostages and 5 Thai nationals held in Gaza have been released by the terror group Hamas and are now back in Israel. 20-year-old Agam Berger, a female soldier, was handed over to the Red Cross in Jabalia in northern Gaza earlier today before being transferred to the Israeli military at the border. The Israeli military confirmed a further 7 hostages have been handed over to the Red Cross, including Gadi Moses and Arbel Yahoud, along with 5 unnamed Thai nationals. Their release is not part of the official ceasefire deal. However, there were chaotic scenes in southern Gaza for the handing over of Arbel Yahoud and Gadi Moses, who were surrounded. Israel is suspending the release of 100 Palestinian prisoners following those scenes in Khan Yunis, according to multiple reports in the Israeli media. Meanwhile, Reuters reports that buses that were carrying the detainees have been told to head back to the prisons. Elsewhere, Channel migrants who put lives at risk will face up to 5 years in jail under a new border security bill. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has outlined plans to make endangering another life during a sea crossing to the UK a new offence. She also announced that people selling and handling boat parts suspected of being used in migrant channel crossings could face up to 14 years in prison under new laws trying to crack down on people smugglers. So far this year, more than 1,000 migrants have made that journey into the English Channel. GB News political editor Christopher Hope sat down with the Home Secretary.
Can't just keep doing any more of the gimmicks. It's got to be this really serious law enforcement, and we've got to treat the border security in the same way that we treat issues of security against terror threats, and that's why we're introducing counter-terror style powers to give law enforcement much stronger powers to act early in the same way that they could around terrorism cases, because that's a sign of really the seriousness of this. If we are going to strengthen border security and prevent lives being lost, we have to have stronger law enforcement powers to go after the dangerous gangs.
Meanwhile, increasing numbers of people from the EU are abusing the common travel arrangement with Ireland to enter the UK to work illegally. GB News can exclusively reveal that many Romanians and Bulgarians in particular are avoiding border checks by crossing from the Republic, while others are simply arriving on tourist visas before finding work. GB News was given exclusive access to accompany immigration enforcement teams who've increased the number of raids they carry out by a third since Labour came to power. Elsewhere, the communications regulator has proposed cutting letter deliveries, with second-class post arriving every second day and no longer on Saturdays. Ofcom said Royal Mail customers' postal needs would be met by keeping first-class deliveries 6 days a week. It also outlined provisional plans to reduce goals for the delivery company, bringing down the percentage of first-class post delivered the next day from 93% to 90%, and second-class mail delivered within 3 days from 98.5% to 95%. Royal Mail's been hit by hefty fines by Ofcom for poor performance, more than £16 million in the last 18 months alone. And retail crime is now at an all-time high, with more than 2,000 incidents reported a day. Last year, more than 70 incidents alone included use of a weapon, with double reported in the previous year. Thefts have reached 20 million incidents per year, costing retailers £2.2 billion annually. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that, Tatiana. My name is Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co, and we're with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, my panel, Kelvin McKenzie, the former editor of The Sun, and Benjamin Butterworth, the journalist and writer. Good evening to both of you. Our paths have never crossed until this evening.
And we've both been here since launch night, so
I know.
3.5 years you've avoided me.
Something tells... I was doing my very best, I can tell you.
Your luck's run out.
So, I know, something tells me sparks might fly with some of the stuff that we've got to discuss tonight. Ladies and gents, get in touch with me, join the conversation, all the usual ways. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay, or, of course, you can tweet or X me. There is a lot that we need to discuss tonight. But let's start off, shall we, with news that's been dominating the airwaves today, that horrendous plane crash in Washington, D.C. I can cross live now to our US reporter, Stephen Edgington. Good evening to you. Good evening, Stephen. Bring us up to speed with all the latest on this story.
That's right. So last night at 9 o'clock local time here in Washington, D.C., 67 people were killed in a horrific plane crash in which a military helicopter crashed with a commercial aircraft as it was flying into Ronald Reagan National Airport here in Washington, D.C., just a few miles away from the White House. It is the first crash on U.S. soil in 17 years for a commercial airliner. And it's one of the worst domestic tragedies, from a death point of view, in more than 20 years. Donald Trump today came out and blamed the Democrats for this crash. He blamed DEI hiring in the Federal Aviation Authority. He blamed Joe Biden. He blamed Barack Obama. And he also said, tens of hundreds of millions of Americans are mourning today. This is a very difficult time for America. And we know that the people who were on that plane, those 64 people, were from Russia, were from America, from all over the world. We had figure skaters on that plane, the American figure skating team, but also the Russian figure skating team. So this really is a tragedy here in the United States. People are mourning. It's a very difficult time in Washington, D.C., and people are demanding answers as to how this incident happened. How did this plane crash into this military helicopter? How did this Black Hawk helicopter not see this plane as it was landing into the airport on the tarmac? So authorities are currently investigating. They have launched various investigations through the Federal Aviation Authority. Trump has appointed a commissioner to investigate this tragedy. And in the next few days and weeks, we should have a bit more information as to how exactly this military helicopter failed to see this commercial flight come into Washington National Airport.
Yeah, and in a few minutes, Stephen, I'm going to play a couple of clips from the press conference that we just heard from Donald Trump. But let me just ask you, this whole notion then that DEI initiatives are somehow to blame, how has that been received? How have those claims been received in America?
Well, Donald Trump says this is common sense, and I suspect that many of his supporters would agree with that. You want the best people, people should be hired on the basis of meritocracy rather than on their race or their gender or the fact that they have mental disabilities, which is something that Trump was highlighting. On the other hand, a lot of people have criticized him for these comments. He said that they've, politicized this crash in a very, very quick way. And he's also blamed the air traffic control and the FFA potentially without any evidence. It doesn't necessarily look like they were the ones responsible for this crash. It looks initially that the people who are responsible was probably the people in the military helicopter, the people in the Black Hawk helicopter, because the plane that came in to land in Washington National Airport last night came in on a typical route. It wasn't, the pilot's fault of that commercial aircraft. He took the route that every single plane flies into that airport takes for the last 20 years. So the crucial question is, why was this Black Hawk helicopter going into the same aviation space on the same sort of location as this plane as it was landing into the airport? So I think that's the important question. And, Donald Trump talking about DEI has certainly caused some controversy here.
Interesting stuff. Stephen, thank you very much for that update. Now, if you didn't see Donald Trump's press conference, it was very recently, about half an hour ago or something like that. Let me just play to you one of the clips that Stephen was just referring to there.
Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller.
Okay, how do we, there's laughter in the studio. Let me start with you. Why are you laughing at that, Kelvin McKay?
I'm laughing because the idea that you would be allowed to carry out an important job like air traffic controller, it's not like being a presenter on a TV station.
You what?
This does matter,
Very
right?
highly skilled
This does
technical
matter,
job, what I
and
do.
lives can be lost or saved by their excellence. But the mixed, hearing the words dwarfism and various other things, I have not heard a President of the United States say that, and I haven't heard a Prime Minister in the UK say that. However, he will start a debate now in offices, not necessarily... So the air traffic control people, the hirers, the bosses, have now got to say, because this is important, every airport in the United States, I'm a passenger, or I have a family who is a passenger, right? They are worried that there might be somebody who is not fit for purpose operating as an air traffic controller. So a debate like that, I think, is worthwhile. I just laughed at the idea that dwarfism might be one of the aspects which can get you a job.
Yeah, I do want to be clear. What he's referring to is he's not just randomly saying, you know, pulling out a list of any old ailments out of his ears. What he's saying is that on the FFA's website, that actually what they have, the FAA, is that what I said, or FFA? It's the FAA. So
FAA,
it's basically like your air traffic control in this country. What he's saying is that they had a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative, and he's saying that that initiative was actively seeking out people that ticked those kind of boxes in those categories. That's what he's referring to. Benjamin, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it was laughable at first because, you know, dwarfs aren't bringing planes down, right? You know, to get a job in that kind of area, then you have to pass very strict exams, and I would imagine you have to pass them repeatedly. I suspect they're regularly checked for their abilities in a way that most jobs aren't. So it's laughable, but it's also dangerous, because are you now going to have, you know, a black woman that's qualified in this career that will become a target of these questions when she's perfectly capable of what she's doing, for example?
Well, not really.
I think,
if someone's qualified,
I think that's a dangerous target of what he's doing.
No, that's the wrong way to look at it. What we should be saying is there's a whole series of people, no matter whether they're disabled or they're of colour or whatever they are, or even, by the way, white, right? They are all able to be hired for this job. What we don't want to do, what I would prefer not to do, I can understand why the minority community want it, I would prefer them to say, we'll have the best people, not the best people.
Well, I want to explore this whole notion of diversity and inclusion. It has been, hasn't it, a key theme for Donald Trump throughout his election campaigning, but also the second that he got elected, you'll recall that he signed many executive orders in relation to this field. Many people actually saying that in some elements and some aspects the UK should follow suit when it comes to some of his strategies. Do you think so or not? Let's expand after the break.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
According to a report from the RAC, many drivers see speed limits as a target rather than anything else. More than 50% of us think it's acceptable to break the speed limit.
So this morning we're asking, is it time to increase the motorway speed limit?
Let's talk to automotive journalists Danny Kelly and Steve Fowler. Gents, what a pleasure to speak to you both in one go.
I think we should join many countries in the European Union that have 130 kilometres speed limit, which is around about 81 miles an hour. I drive to London on a weekly basis, and I think the roads are capable of handling higher speeds. I think unofficially the speed limit, without getting pulled over by the local police at the time, is probably around about 78, 80 miles an hour. If a Bobby's on the motorway doing 70 miles an hour, he wants you to overtake him. He wants the free-flowing of that motorway to continue.
So should we change 70 miles an hour? You know, if people are going 80 miles an hour, just stick to 70 miles an hour as a limit. Yes, you know, it's funny when you're driving along the motorway and there's a police car going at 70 and nobody wants to overtake. But if the average is 80, just leave it at 70.
All the gantries now are fitted with the modern signage where they can change the limit at will. We all know that. It's hard to get up to 70 half the time. So, actually, we could apply those rules, couldn't we, at 80 or even 90 miles an hour? and say, well, if the weather's bad, let's reduce it. If the fog's bad, let's reduce it.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I hate to use this phrase, smart motorways, but they're the ones where you have the adjustable limits. They don't cover all of the motorway network, relatively small amount of the motorway network. It is a limit. You know, it's not a target, as I keep saying to my kids. God, they're bored of me saying that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. Till 7 o'clock, Kelvin Mackenzie, Benjamin Butterworth alongside me. Now, before the break, we were just talking about this horrendous plane crash, obviously, in Washington, D.C., and in particular, the press conference that Donald Trump gave, where he referenced DEI initiatives. Lots of you have got in touch with me and say, Michelle, he's not specifically blaming the crash on DEI. He's currently saying he doesn't know, but what he's doing is labouring the point that in too many areas and departments and so on, that DEI has taken precedent over merit. He's just throwing that out there as something to consider. Many people, Kelvin, have got in touch as well, saying that actually we should scrap all DEI initiatives in this country. Should we?
Not a bad idea. Well, in fact, right now, as we talk now, I think the Crime Commissioner for Hertfordshire has just ditched a DEI booklet, which basically said that people shouldn't use the word black sheep. Actually, the one that I liked was the idea, well, what would we do with black mariahs? But anyway, putting that to one side. And also white fragility, all the old tropes that come in, right? And so the reason that the Commissioner and the Chief Constable has agreed with him, the reason they're dropping it is because they think it breaks down the relationship between the majority of the community and other people who feel that who feel that they do need this. The truth about DEI, I mean, let's face it, for London, for police officers, we want lots of people that represent London, right? Because people find it difficult to get instructions from people of another colour. That's a very strange idea. But I can understand it for police officers. I can't understand it for lots of other jobs. I just can't. And yeah, what is it that colour brings to the job that intellect can't trump?
Well, you say, yeah, but you said that as a white person. I imagine that there are other people. I don't know, if you're a young black lad, you might feel more comfortable talking to a black male about whatever's going on within your setup. But what I would say is whether the officer is black or white or whatever is irrelevant to me. But what I feel is often overlooked is their physicality. So, like, remember, there was a lot of conversations about bleep tests and fitness tests and whether or not we should reduce the strenuousness of those tests. And I kind of think, hang on a second, if I want to be rescued by a copper or have a copper wandering the streets, I want them to be very fit and able and agile and speedy to catch the criminals. Benjamin, where are you on this DI stuff?
Well, I mean, I think what Trump has done is ugly and shows a complete lack of class. To try and tie in this tragedy to his political campaign when there's no evidence of a link, I think, is pretty undignified.
So you don't like his timing?
Well, it's not really the timing, it's the lack of evidence. He's just trying to make a point regardless of what crops up in the news. He's an excellent campaigner, an excellent showman, but I think it's ugly, and I think it undermines his argument, really. You know, diversity inclusion is about meritocracy. This is what frustrates me so much.
You don't believe that, do you?
Absolutely,
How do you say that with a straight
because
face?
tell me, so for example, the chair of the bar, the Barristers Association this year, is the first black person to ever chair it, a woman who's got that post. Now, don't tell me that in the very long history of the Bar of England and Wales, there has never been a black person in Britain capable of that job. Of course there has. But there are institutional and structural barriers that exist that mean that people don't progress.
Absolutely. Benjamin, that is completely wrong. The situation is, why do you think that you know that there is a clever person, Asian or Afro-Caribbean, whatever they are, was capable of doing it in the past? Why don't you accept that this lady is the best that there has been in that period of time? Why won't you accept that? Because you've just said that you can't believe that there wasn't a decent person of colour. No, well, even if there was a decent person of colour, there might have been. This is the strange thing. There might have been a decent white person who was better than the decent person of colour. And suddenly we come to today, the lady gets the job, terrific, OK? And by the way, the next person, well, who knows what colour there will be, right? But my feeling now is that if you are white and you have a significant kind of intellectual and ambition and everything, actually, you may well be, I hate using the word, trumped by somebody who has some other aspect to their intellect which has been God-given, we'll say colour, or disabled.
I don't agree with that at all. Look, I'm a white 30-year-old, so I'm a young person, and I've not faced any barriers, but I don't have a problem with the fact that there are institutional barriers to people from other communities. Don't tell me that a black person from, say, a Jamaican family growing up 30 years ago would not have faced prejudice and assumptions. There are people who perhaps they were right, and maybe Michelle will know.
Hold on a second.
And they make assumptions about your intelligence based on things that are not your intelligence, and that's why you have to have schemes to tell them that they
is
can
completely wrong.
But hang on,
today in this world, actually the reverse is probably true.
Because we've had 10, 20 years of these policies.
So how do you think that the white majority community then feel about the fact that they are behind in the queue when it comes to a job? I know loads of people who feel very uneasy about when they go for a job and effectively they get told, I'm very sorry, chum, we have got an oversupply of the white folk. I'm afraid we're going to have to somebody of a different colour. There's nothing wrong with you, but we've got to do this. Otherwise, by the way, for all government departments, they now give a number. And if that number isn't the number which has to be hit by the government, then you as a civil servant won't get preferment yourself. It is that's true.
It is right that we have these policies because you have to make it clear that people can reach their full potential when no one has done it before.
Why do you believe that people can't?
Let me finish a point. Right. The only DEI we have in this country is for posh white boys that are told that they are geniuses when actually they have no discernible skills. Don't look at the government in the last 10, 15 years.
You're just making it up.
No, I'm not.
Your argument has now collapsed.
No, I'm not.
That is a ridiculous thing to say.
Because people get jobs in this country and get promotions precisely because they're white blokes being hired by white blokes, not because they're the best. And you have to break down that structure. Don't tell me
you never hired anybody. I hire people. Have you ever hired anybody in your life, Benjamin? You've got no idea. No, but have you ever been a recruiter? Have you ever run a business? You are just guessing at this. I am saying to you, there is not enough talent. There is not enough talent in our country for me to decide that I will or won't hire somebody based on the fact they have their colour.
I think rather than a millionaire straight white bloke, a gay person is going to have more idea. And I tell you what, if you were a gay person,
you have never hired anybody. Just tell the viewers how many people you've hired. Go on. The answer's no.
I became a top-rate taxpayer at 30, so I think I'm not bad hard worker.
No, you're all right. You're a hard worker, but you've got no idea what it's like to recruit, have you?
Let me tell you, if you were a gay person trying to get ahead in the sun or you were in the public eye, do you think it would have harmed their chances? I think it would, because of the way that you edited that paper.
When I edited The Sun, if you're in journalism, the gay community dominate, and it did do in my day.
Come off it.
No, I'm telling you, in my day,
that kind of prejudice, structural prejudice.
There is no structural prejudice in our country. We're the most open country that I know, right across Europe and certainly across America, by the way.
Well, there you go. I told you it would be a little bit spicy tonight, didn't I? What do you think to all of this DEI? Is it even a thing? If it is it necessary? Or is it time to root it all out once and for all? Your thoughts? I'll see you in 2. There is much to discuss.
Lines close tomorrow on your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
It's such a nice feeling.
Just go for it.
It's one text, and if I can win, anyone can win.
I was on cloud 9.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Outbreaks of rain will move through overnight, heavy at times, accompanied by gusty winds, along with some hill snow. They do ease, though, by morning and then turning drier and brighter from the west as the next ridge of high pressure builds in. We've had a ridge of high pressure in place during the day, and under clear skies it will turn chilly for a time during the evening. With rain moving in from the west, that means there'll be some hill snow for northern England and Scotland. Heavy rain elsewhere and accompanied by gusty winds, an unsettled night to come, and a chilly, grey, in places damp start to Friday. A lot of low cloud is expected first thing, as well as some further outbreaks of rain and drizzle, some heavier rain likely through southern counties of England into London and the southeast. That is moving through, though. Wales and the southwest by 7 a.m. starting to turn dry and brighter. Best of the sunshine through Northern Ireland, parts of western Scotland as well, although much of the rest of Scotland staying relatively gloomy with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. But the hill snow that we're expecting overnight, that's tending to fizzle away by dawn, and only a relatively few amount of roads affected by that. Now, the rain in the southeast does ease off during the afternoon, but it stays generally grey with some mist and drizzle in places. Much brighter skies are starting to move in from the west, and a pleasant enough afternoon in western parts, 9 or 10 Celsius with lighter winds. But in the east, well, it stays grey, and we see more of that into the start of the weekend. Low cloud, mist, fog, some pockets of frost where we do have clear spells. But in the northwest, well, the cloud thickens through the morning, and later on the next band of rain moves through. That does sweep across the country once again into Sunday, followed by brighter skies, and the weather continues to stay changeable into the start of next week.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Big problems in Perth city centre for Tay Street. The A989 has been closed due to flooding. The Tay Street floodgates have remained closed since Friday. And in Derbyshire, north of Ripley, the A610 is shut eastbound off the Hartsay roundabout off the A38 after a lorry overturned. On the Hertfordshire stretch of the M25, the motorway is partly blocked anti-clockwise just before junction 25 at the A10. There's been an accident inside the Homestead Tunnel, not being helped by the ongoing roadworks on that stretch. And further round on the Essex stretch, the middle lane is closed clockwise just before 26 Waltham Abbey, where a van has broken down. In Hertfordshire at Hemel Hempstead, the A414 Breakspear Way blocked by an accident. And in Surrey at Nutfield, the A25 at Bletchley Road shut following a two-vehicle collision. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock here on Dewbs & Co. Alongside me, Kelvin Mackenzie, the former editor of The Sun, and Benjamin Butterworth, the journalist and the writer. Lots of you getting in touch about this conversation when it comes to DEI and Donald Trump. I mean, just to summarise what many of you are saying, you completely agree with Donald Trump when it comes to scrapping many DEI sentiments and initiatives. Lots and lots of you there are saying, like Phil, for example, I'm a fan of President Trump and what he said was right, but today was not the time. All he needed to do today was stick to giving his and the nation's condolences and an outline of what happened and explain that more details would be coming available. This whole kind of capitalising, if you would like, on this tragedy to talk about his initiatives is not going down well with lots of you at home. But there is a lot of love for some of the things that Donald Trump does. I mean, you know what I think? Some of his executive orders, all of this kind of trying to go back and actually reinstate that there's only two genders that will be recognised and so on. Of course, you know my thoughts. I think that kind of stuff is absolutely fabulous. I would love to see that replicated in this country. We can dream, can't we, ladies and gents? But look, I just want to pay a tribute, if you'd like, just take a second to reflect on a fellow Hollensian, if you will indulge me. I speak, of course, about Lord John Prescott, our former Deputy Prime Minister. He, of course, very recently passed away, and he had his funeral today in my hometown in Hull at the Minster. Lots of people speaking out to reflect about his life and pay their respects. Let me just show you what Tony Blair had to say.
John was guardian of the party's conscience, but it's important to remember he was also its educator. Our relationship would never have worked had we been two peas in different pods. John was loyal, a quality prime ministers value highly. He had the most refined and intelligent intuition about what Labour must do to sustain itself in power.
It connected with me, some of the things that he was saying, because in terms of leadership connecting to the electorate and who the Labour Party are and the type of politician that the likes of John Prescott was. Benjamin, do you think we've got that kind of calibre of politician in the Labour Party now?
I think, well, first of all, I just want to note that he turned up in two Jags. His coffin was in one and his family in another, which I just thought was the most beautiful touch.
Fitting tribute.
And who knows if that was something that he came up with while he was around, but it was perfect. I think the thing about John Prescott is what we've lost is people that have been on such a long journey in life. You know, he was from a working class background, he worked on the ships, he went through his trade union and that was his way in. He knew a life completely different in which he never imagined power or influence or money, which he would go on to have. Whereas so many of the politicians now have anticipated that life for so long, they're almost a mimic of a politician. And I think it's not unique to the Labour Party. Angela Rayner, I think, is fitting to fill the shoes of John Prescott. I think she has a lot in common with him. Her life really was a million miles away from what she's achieved, and I admire that a lot. But I think we have a problem with the careerism of it. Most people that go through the trades unions now are indistinguishable from a typical career politician who goes to a think tank.
Kelvin? Was you a fan of Prescott?
Not particularly. No. You know, he was to start with, he was a socialist, so therefore we were travelling down different roads in life. And however, the thing to be said is the way that the other major politicians of his day turned out to say goodbye to him. It would have been just as easy if you're as busy as Blair is, or making money and coming back from the Far East, the Middle East. It's always nice to see a former Prime Minister loaded with gold. For him to come back to the Minster and make the speech, and Brown to do something similar, I think, is very nice. And the other thing that I don't think is likely to happen is that political careers are much shorter now, right? You can quote do politics until your early mid-50s, and then you can go on and quote make money. And so he wasn't one of those. He was the old school. So I tip my hat to him.
And people like that are rare. I was at Dame Tessa Jowell's memorial some years ago, and every Prime Minister turned up. Conservatives and Labour Prime Ministers spoke, you know, and I was sat among cabinet ministers of all sorts of governments. There are very few people that command that respect, and often it's because as Gordon Brown said, there are people that are one of us, that you feel really understood what they were talking about, and you don't have to agree with John Prescott's conclusions, but he clearly felt everything he said.
Yeah, I like John. I mean, I'm not a socialist. I don't think I heard that very well. But I'm
You're not a socialist?
I know, I heard it so well, don't I?
You'd never would have. It's amazing you got the job here.
I know. Yeah, but it's like, I did like John, actually, because I like authenticity, I like integrity, I like honesty. I might not always, I don't need to always agree with you, but as long as I think that your intentions are pure and that you're a good egg, then I quite respect that. Do you think that Starmer is of that kind of ilk of politician?
No, nobody will turn out for his funeral. I doubt.
Well, yes, they will.
I doubt whether many people turn out for his birth. No. Starmer is honestly, first of all, he'd be a one-term prime minister and won't be required after he takes them back to a bigger loss as his victory. And secondly, he doesn't have what a Prescott has. He hasn't got a boom of a personality. All he is a lawyer who was lucky and was prepared to tell lies over Brexit.
Oh, ouch. That's a harsh summary of Keir Starmer. Some of you might disagree at home. But look, I want to talk about our Home Secretary now, because Yvette Cooper has been speaking out today. She's been talking about counter-terrorism plans that she thinks will help smash the gangs. How many times do I hear that sentence? Anyway, take a listen.
We can't just keep doing any more of the gimmicks. It's got to be this really serious law enforcement, and we've got to treat the border security in the same way that we treat issues of security against terror threats, and that's why we're introducing counter-terror style powers to give law enforcement much stronger powers to act early in the same way that they could around terrorism cases, because that's a sign of really the seriousness of this. If we are going to strengthen border security and prevent lives being lost, we have to have stronger law enforcement powers to go after the dangerous gangs.
Strong, 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 smash, 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 smash. Don't know how many times I hear those words, but does it buy you over? Are you convinced? Is it going to work?
Look, anything that is helpful towards stopping this number of people coming to our country, I'm 100% in favour. Do I think any of this is going to work? Right, with the cunning criminality of people literally making like £200,000 per boat? No, I don't. And the other thing that surprises me is that Yvette Cooper's only been doing this job for about 8 months. She looks absolutely exhausted by it already. I imagine she wants to be on the GMB sofa with her husband rather than having to traipse around talking this kind of talk. Look, if anybody gets caught, arrested and does 5, 10, 20 years, great. I should point out that in January there was a record number of record January number of boat people came over the channel. So thank you, Labour, for talking smashing the gangs, but actually sounds as though you're encouraging the gangs.
Benjamin?
Well, I mean, I don't think the laws that they're proposing have been passed in time for January, so I don't think you can judge what's happening on the proposals they're making. I mean, if you look at the facts, deportations are up by 1/3 in the last 6 months compared to a year earlier under the Tories.
Yeah, but hold on, because the majority of those were voluntary.
Well, why did the Tories do it then?
And I thought we gave cash incentives to those people as well.
Well, hang on. The handful of people that went back under a sort of version of the Rwanda scheme was paid. But then in the last 6 months, 13,500 people have been deported. The biggest deportation
of which most of those were voluntary deportations.
Right, but as someone put to...
So if someone knocks on your door and goes, hiya, can you pay for me for a flight home, please? I'm not really sure that we should celebrate that as a success of any government, whoever it is. I would say that about any government, by the way.
Well, if it were that easy, then why didn't it happen for 14 years? You know, I'm glad it's happening, right? Because these people shouldn't be here. The numbers are up. And the suggestion about smashing the gangs shouldn't be derided. Because if it were only as simple as shooting the boats, as some people have suggested, well, then, you know, if we just had to pop the boats and then take them away, it's obviously not that easy. This is organised crime. It is extremely profitable. And not only that, the people that get here, it's a left-wing thing to stop the boats. Because these people, it costs a lot of money. Kelvin referred to that. But often they don't, some of them don't have that money. They then exist in slave labour in this country to pay back that money and far more. And so there is nothing right-wing about saying stop the boats. It's absolutely right what Victor is doing.
Right. So my issue about this is that we've been trying to... Look, I'm not against us trying to arrest people and put some energy and some money into doing that. in our country, we have a massive problem on top of immigration. We have drugs. And we have all kinds of laws, all kinds of this, all kinds of that. And the drug problem in our country is growing. And so it's no good, it seems to me, that just passing laws is not going to be enough. We are going to have to do something dramatic. Now, that dramatic means crossing over policies, which I suspect, Benjamin, knowing you would be against. You would be against us turning the boats back. You would be against just simply dragging them back and literally having a war with France.
But we can't.
Literally having a war with France.
Obviously, a war with France is not a rational answer. It's not an answer that would save us money or cause us fewer.
Do you know, for our country, supposing you had a referendum about all this kind of stuff and said, should we turn the boats back and have the problem with France or with anybody? What do you think the outcome of that referendum would be?
Well, the answer is they would say yes, and they would say yes without any proposition of how that would work. You know, I'm sure people would say, oh, you know, blow up the Channel Tunnel if it stops them coming over. It's not that easy. You have to work with other countries. You know, Giorgia Meloni is illustrating that, and that's who Keir Starmer keeps going to for advice.
Well, he likes spending time out of the country mainly, doesn't he? Because he's not welcome elsewhere.
But on an unusual note where you're right is that, you know, the number one foreign nationality in our prisons is Albanians, and until recently that was the number one nationality coming in the boats. Now, they could probably get here legally, but the reason they come illegally is because they sell drugs and have organised crime. It's very big among Albanians, and we managed to solve that by getting an agreement with the Albanian government.
A year from today,
negotiation and diplomacy works.
Fine. A year from today, Benjamin, we're all sitting around here, right?
I don't think that's back.
On the basis that Michel is still employed. We're all sitting around here, right? Do you believe that the migration issue will be easier thanks to either smashing the gags or any other good idea?
Yes, I do. Because one of the new crimes that they're trying to bring in is about people that are in that cycle of letting these people in. So the ones that aid them, people that, fail to tip off authorities, that help them get into places of work illegally. Those people in the chain of command need to be prosecuted too, and that's one of Yvette Cooper's answers. Yeah, You need to take away the incentive. I would introduce ID cards, because then police could go to a car wash, for example, and they could say, you show your ID card to prove you're working here legally, and if you've not got it, well, there you go, you've caught them straight away.
I think you'd have to have a separate police force to deal with that kind of thing. The thing made me laugh is that in the GB News, when they did that inquiry and fined people up in North Wales that came from Romania and everything, actually, they were making £1,000 a week.
Actually, you've teed up that story. I was going to go to a different story after the break, but a lot of viewers won't know what on earth Kelvin is talking about when it comes to this situation.
I feel the same.
I know, tell me about it. I see for the last half an hour, thinking what on earth's going on. But anyway, look, I'll just, after the break, I will come back and explain this story, because it is quite interesting. GB News exclusive after the break.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Often breezy across the Canary Islands and heavy showers in Tunisia and Algeria, but elsewhere it is going to be largely settled, particularly across Greece and Italy. Plenty of sunny spells here, but as we move our way westwards towards the Mediterranean, this is where we're going to find the heavy showers. These could be thundery at times, and then out to the west, high pressure largely dominating, but it is going to bring some strong winds at times across Madeira and also Tenerife, where the best of the temperatures are, and elsewhere it is going to be largely settled into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, after moving to the UK from Kochi in Japan over 25 years ago, our next guest missed the taste of home and started making sushi with local ingredients.
Yes, Tomino Davies went on to establish Tomino Sushi Party, inspired by her mother's dedication to cooking fresh meals every day.
Now, while sushi is usually enjoyed in restaurants in Japan, Tomino is showing that anyone can create it at home. So here we go. She's already taught over 500 people and is now bringing her passion to even more people.
So she joins us now in the studio to give us one of her sushi masterclasses. First of all, we're a little bit nervous. We're certainly not pros. I love eating sushi, but certainly not making it.
As long as you follow my instruction, it should be that easy.
Okay, great. That's what we like to hear.
So tell us a little bit about your business and why we're here today.
Of course. So, my name is Tomono Davies. I'm originally from the place called Kochi, as you mentioned, and I'm the founder and the owner of Tomono Sushi Party. So we bring authentic, hands-on sushi making classes to homes, offices in London and home counties. Also, we run public classes, the information which you can find on my website.
Yep.
So this goes all the way back in 90s, actually, when I was a student.
Never.
The Japanese food wasn't widely available, but I really craved a beautiful, aromatic aged sushi, Japanese food. And when you're craving something, you started making your own at home. And I fell in love with the Englishman. He brought me back to UK. Then that's the time more people start asking me, can you teach me how to make sushi?
The People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7. Kelvin Mackenzie, Benjamin Butterworth alongside me. Just before the break, we were talking about Yvette Cooper's plans now to toughen up the laws when it comes to clamping down on people smuggling gangs. Kelvin Mackenzie teed up nicely my next topic for me, because an exclusive GB News investigation reveals quite some shocking numbers, actually. The number of EU nationals that are now entering the country and working illegally. Romanians and Bulgarians in particular are avoiding the border checks by crossing from the Republic. You've got to see some of the footage on the screens if you're watching on the television. Kelvin Mackenzie, you brought this topic up. What do you think to it?
Well, I mean, I don't know how many people, how many Romanians and how many Bulgarians there are. It does make me laugh that they're now fighting to get into the EU with us having into the UK, with us having thrown them out in the first place. But the thing that made me raised an eyebrow here is that the place they went to was a factory up in North Wales, where they discovered, where the Romanians and the Bulgarians, you say to yourself, what are you doing here? And the answer is they were making £1,000 a week.
I know.
Right?
Obviously tax-free.
In North Wales, do you know, the people of North Wales would kill for £1,000 a week. What are these, what is it that they're doing for their money? It was unclear to me. And so anybody in North Wales now should go...
It sounds like it's half tempted. It would sound like you're on your way. You're going to be on your way, jumping in your car, on the way to Wales.
I'm on my way to Anglesey.
Benjamin, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I have to say, I did think that about the fact they're earning £1,000 a week. And I thought, are these not the people we want in the country and would be better off if they were paying taxes? Because, to earn that money and to earn it in a place like North Wales, which doesn't have great wages, they must be working damned hard. And one of the failures of Brexit, I think, is that we have swapped a lot of young, single, healthy migrants from Eastern Europe, a pretty similar culture, and we now have lots of people from Nigeria, from Ghana, from India and Pakistan, who have far more dependents, and so there are much greater strain on the economy per migrant, and they tend not to have the work ethic that some of these people have. So I think, you know, it's a total mistake. As far as I'm concerned, we need migrants, and we've swapped a more valuable group for a less valuable group. But there's another part to this, which is that lots of these people don't come through the Irish border. They just come here as supposed tourists.
They do.
And then they don't leave. Now, how can a country that is presenting itself as a tech leader in the world, you know, with this new Silicon Valley of Oxford and Cambridge, and yet we can't even...
That's not new. They've been talking about that for goodness knows how many years. They've never got it off the ground.
We can't even track people that have come through our own airports, that they stay here for what is presumably less than 90 days. You know, last week I was in Mauritania, which is one of the poorest, most desolate countries in the world. It's just the Sahara Desert. And to get into that country, I had to give so many details, apply for a visa, give my mobile number, list the places I was going to be, give the date I was going to leave. And they had all that information, and they knew it when I left the country 8 days later. How can you have a scenario
we don't
where
know
the
that.
Sahara Desert country, the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, has a better track of people coming in than Great Britain?
That is a very good point. We do not count them on the way out. Right, and this is what's happening. If you look at that 5 million figure, and they said, well, actually, all the illegals come into our country, just come in through Heathrow, Gatwick, or wherever. They get the visa, and they stay. What I want to know is, what are these jobs that these people are doing?
Look at it.
And most of them appear to be Deliveroos.
What I'll do when I get out of here, I'll speak to Mark White, 'cause it was him that did the investigation, and I'll try and find out the details of the employers. I'll send it your way. He's very keen, isn't he? He looks very interesting.
By the way, I might fail. I might fail under ageism.
Yeah, you might fail. If you're a straight
and the wrong colour,
white man,
and the wrong colour,
yeah, straight,
wrong colour, wrong age.
I was going to say straight, white, middle age, but that wouldn't apply to you, would it? That last bit.
No.
So if you're a straight, white, middle-aged man, you will struggle, I think.
But with energy.
With energy, yeah, with vitality.
As any of my ex-wives would be the first to attest.
Look, Kelvin, this is a 6 o'clock tea time show. Look, I'll tell you this, Owen, one of the primary values that we have in this country is fairness. We have a real sense of fairness, don't we? Anyone that tries to go to the pub, anyone that jumps in front of you, we have absolutely none of it. One of the declining things in our country right now is the sense of fairness. So many people struggling in their own lives, their bills going up and up and up, struggling to afford a decent standard of life and living for themselves and their families. And you look across, it seems to be absolutely everywhere now, people getting access relatively easily to housing, free clothes. When you're getting off some of these boats, £3,000 apparently we're spending a day just on clothing for people. The sense of fairness in this country is eroding thick and fast. Look, lots of you still getting in touch about Donald Trump. Lots of you not also convinced that Yvette Cooper's plan is going to work. But all I would say is all of us need her plans to work, quite frankly, because if we're going to get control of the border, then tough action is what we need. But look, gents, that's all I've got time for. Thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you at home. I've enjoyed your company, but have a fantastic night, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Outbreaks of rain will move through overnight, heavy at times, accompanied by gusty winds, along with some hill snow. They do ease, though, by morning, and then turning drier and brighter from the west as the next ridge of high pressure builds in. We've had a ridge of high pressure in place during the day, and under clear skies it will turn chilly for a time during the evening. With rain moving in from the west, that means there'll be some hill snow for northern England and Scotland. Heavy rain elsewhere, and accompanied by gusty winds, an unsettled night to come, and a chilly, grey, in places damp start to Friday. A lot of low cloud is expected first thing, as well as some further outbreaks of rain and drizzle, some heavier rain likely through southern counties of England into London and the southeast. That is moving through, though. Wales and the southwest by 7 a.m. starting to turn dry and brighter. Best of the sunshine through Northern Ireland, parts of western Scotland as well, although much of the rest of Scotland staying relatively gloomy with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. But the hill snow that we're expecting overnight, that's tending to fizzle away by dawn, and only a relatively few amount of roads affected by that. Now, The rain in the southeast does ease off during the afternoon, but it stays generally grey with some mist and drizzle in places. Much brighter skies are starting to move in from the west, and a pleasant enough afternoon in western parts, 9 or 10 Celsius with lighter winds. But in the east, well, it stays grey, and we see more of that into the start of the weekend. Low cloud, mist, fog, some pockets of frost where we do have clear spells. But in the northwest, well, the cloud thickens through the morning, and later on the next band of rain moves through. That does sweep across the country once again into Sunday, followed by brighter skies, and the weather continues to stay changeable into the start of next week.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Problems in Tyne and Wear to the north of Newcastle for the A19, which is blocked northbound between the Killingworth Junction and the Moor Farm roundabout, and the scene of an accident on Merseyside, just east of Liverpool city centre. The A57 is closed off the A580 at the scene of an accident on Kensington, and in Lincolnshire, south of Lincoln, the A15 remains closed to the Harmston turnoff and the scene of a free vehicle collision. On the Hertfordshire stretch of the M25, the inside lane of Free is closed anti-clockwise just before junction 25 at the A10. A lorry is broken down inside the Holmesdale tunnel in the roadworks, where recovery work continues, with long queues back into Essex all the way back to the M11. And staying in Hertfordshire at Hemel Hempstead, the A414 remains closed along Breakspear Way following an accident at Bunsfield Lane. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far, £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
We won 25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
Don't miss out, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. New legislation put forward by the government, which they say will smash the gangs. Forgive my scepticism. The cost of net zero to business. I think the worm is turning. Even the BBC now asking questions about it. When are we all going to properly wake up? And as America says DEI is out in the military, the Royal Navy puts forward a new diversity programme that is really quite something else. That and, of course, the 5th anniversary of Brexit tomorrow. All of that coming up after the news.
Nigel, thank you very much and good evening. The top stories: Channel migrants who put lives at risk will face up to 5 years in jail under a new border security bill. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has outlined plans to make endangering another life during a sea crossing to the UK a new offence. She also announced that people selling and handling boat parts suspected of being used in migrant channel crossings could face up to 14 years in prison under new laws trying to crack down on people smugglers. So far this year, more than 1,000 migrants have made that crossing into the UK via the English Channel. GB News' political editor Christopher Hope sat down with the Home Secretary.
Can't just keep doing any more of the gimmicks. It's got to be this really serious law enforcement, and we've got to treat the border security in the same way that we treat issues of security against terror threats, and that's why we're introducing counter-terror style powers to give law enforcement much stronger powers to act early in the same way that they could around terrorism cases, because that's a sign of really the seriousness of this. If we are going to strengthen border security and prevent lives being lost, we have to have stronger law enforcement powers to go after the dangerous gangs.
US President Donald Trump has paid tribute to those who've lost their lives in the Washington, D.C. air collision. Authorities in Washington say they don't expect to find any survivors after a plane and helicopter collided in mid-air over the Potomac River. These are the latest live shots from the US Capitol. More than 300 emergency responders are searching for survivors. 64 people, including crew, were on the American Airlines flight. 3 soldiers were on board the Black Hawk helicopter. At least 28 bodies have been recovered so far. The helicopter was on a training flight when the crash happened just before 9 p.m. local time.
Our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now. And in the days to come, we'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers.
And Marianne Faithfull, best known for the song As Tears Go By, has died at the age of 78. The statement said Marianne passed away peacefully in London today in the company of her loving family. She will be dearly missed. In addition to her music career, Faithfull also acted in films, including The Girl on a Motorcycle, as well as theatre productions. And those are the latest headlines. For now, it's back to Nigel.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. Today the government put forward their proposals for the Immigration and Asylum Bill. And the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, spoke to GB News' Christopher Hope. This is what she had to say.
We can't just keep doing any more of the gimmicks. It's got to be this really serious law enforcement, and we've got to treat the border security in the same way that we treat issues of security against terror threats, and that's why we're introducing counter-terror style powers to give law enforcement much stronger powers to act early in the same way that they could around terrorism cases, because that's a sign of really the seriousness of this. If we are going to strengthen border security and prevent lives being lost, we have to have stronger law enforcement powers to go after the dangerous gangs.
So there we go. No more gimmicks. Rwanda was but a gimmick, and much of the other legislation put in place by the previous government was, in her view, a gimmick, but she's going to get really tough on the gangs. And that is going to solve the problem of small boats coming across the English Channel. Tell me, will this make a difference? Tweet #Farage on GB News or email farage@gbnews.com. I don't think it'll make any difference at all, but we'll have to see. I'm joined in the studio by Graham Stringer MP, veteran Labour MP. It's OK to call you that, isn't it? Blakely and Middleton South.